The only thing better than an actual football game is a scrimmage that we can talk about. And that's what we're going to do today.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Pretty good. Pretty good. We are now officially in game week. It's not our game week, but if we pretend to be like Nebraska or Vanderbilt fans, welcome to game week.
Oh, man, that is true. You know, I got to keep reminding myself there's actual games this week. That's awesome. But look, the most important thing that happened in this hemisphere yesterday was Alabama scrimmage. And I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but Alabama had a scrimmage. There were a lot of things to glean from said scrimmage. I think number one is I have gone from my Heisman favorite being Bryce Young or Will Anderson to the Heisman favorite now being the one and only Traeshon Holden. Is this true?
There was a glowing reports yesterday for sure. Nick Saban himself, pointed out that Traeshon had a very big day, or how do you put a very nice day. But, one thing about scrimmages to always keep in mind is who you're doing it against. Every big play means you give up a big play. Now, the nature of scrimmages is not typically that the first team is against the first team on all the snaps. So the majority of snaps, the starting unit plays a backup unit. So again, it's like A-Day in that, and it's less helpful than even A-Day. In A-Day, they purposefully put first team against first team and second team against second team to make the best competitive atmosphere possible. But in scrimmages, they don't. It's the starters versus the backups. So while there are things to glean and there are things to get excited about as it relates to like Traeshon, I would pump the brakes a little bit. Obviously, the Heisman thing, you were being jokey, but I would pump the brakes a little bit. Now, is Traeshon Holden improved over last year? That's a very fair statement. Most kids do improve year to year. Kids get better every year. Some kids make big jumps, and maybe Holden has done that. Let's remember this, guys, before we go too far. We had a big problem at wide receiver last year when Jamison Williams and John Mechie went down. We felt like we were out of bullets in the second half of the national championship game. We're out of bullets. Know who was still on the team? Traeshon Holden. He was still out there. He even caught balls. As a matter of fact, I brought up this week after watching the national championship game, rewatching it in the past week or two, I'd forgotten that Traeshon caught so many balls in that game. He actually caught 5 or 6 balls just in the second half because we came kind of dependent. Now, did he make big plays? Was it like the scrimmage performance yesterday? No. But, Georgia's defense last year was not the Alabama second-team defense. So I think Traeshon's improved. I think he'll be a big part of things. I think he'll definitely be a big part of the first team. Do I expect him to rip off a 180-yard game against Utah State? No, I don't. I still believe that the number one receiver on this team will be, in terms of amount of targets, amount of catches, even amount of yards, my money would be on Jermaine Burton.
I'm with you on the Jermaine Burton thing, but it is so I don't know another adjective to use rather than heartwarming to know that we have another receiver that is producing this well or is capable of doing this. And I know it's a one-off. I know it's a scrimmage that we you could go two ways with this. Like you said, you could say Traeshon Holden is awesome, or, oh my God, our secondary is a wreck. I mean, that's right.
Well, backup secondary.
I know.
And secondly, and keep in mind, there are backup people in the secondary playing with the first team because of the well-known injuries. We've had a cornerback. It's not a secret that Eli Ricks did not scrimmage at all yesterday. Kyrie Jackson did, but reportedly not with the first team. So he's still coming back from injury, as Nick has said. So, So the backup secondary would really be a backup secondary. Another wide receiver to talk about, though, two scrimmages in a row, reports on various sites that Kobe Prentice is with the first team. The fact that Kobe is emerged as the quote best of those freshman receivers, or the one that's most ready to play, that's super exciting too. Kobe Prentice had fantastic highlights from his season at Calera last year. I think that's yet another potential weapon that Bryce will have, who also, by all reports, fantastic yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. And again, I get your point. Pump the brakes, all those things. That's all true. But see, not everybody can walk into the situation and just be an instant star. And we have also seen some guys, especially in Alabama's program, they get here and almost get swallowed up by expectations. And so, again, Traeshon Holden, I just like to know now that he can have those moments. And I know it was against our backups, but let's also be real that our backups, not patting ourselves on the back, are better than most starters. That is the truth. And again, it makes me sound
more talented. Yeah, that's true.
It makes me sound like a Bammer homer. I understand. And I'm not trying to be that, but I'm saying that if Traeshon Holden can do this in a scrimmage and can have that kind of rapport with Bryce Young, you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't click. And I think maybe the fact that it can click for Traeshon Holden is very, very positive, because we also have a tendency, at least as Alabama fans, you either come in and start kicking butt from the very moment you set foot on campus, or we're already thinking about how do we recruit past you. There are less Mac Jones feel-good stories of this guy just hung around and then I remember I was guilty of this. I thought Mac Jones would be replaced by Bryce Young but in the preseason of 2021. I kept telling everybody that Bryce Young's going to beat him out. What are you talking about? Mac Jones has been there forever, and he's not even good. And then all he does is just kick butt all over the place. Jimmy, I want to go ahead and tell everybody about Built Bar, and then we'll get into some more of this scrimmage reaction, because it was a scrimmage to have many reactions about. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? They're new flavor. They got a new one. Ready? It's indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite flavor. It's cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All of the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. That's the worst part, is making it. The eating it's fun. Plus, it's healthy for you. And like all Built Bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate-covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. Can't beat that. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKEDON15. Get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCK15 at Built.com to get 15% off that order at Built.com, like I'm saying. All right, so you brought up Kobe Prentice. Again, another very nice, solid day. And unlike Traeshon Holden, who, by the way, how did he get to be a junior? I mean, am I the only one that's been thinking all along, hey, Traeshon Holden right here in his second year, but he is a junior. I have to keep pinching myself to remind me that, okay, he's a junior. That's the other thing. Is like if somebody doesn't contribute right away, you automatically forget what class they're in. But Kobe Prentice having a big day is nice. He is one of those guys that comes in apparently and starts just taking care of business, as he has done in practice these last couple of times in a scrimmage situation. I want to go back and give Traeshon Holden one more shout out, though. He apparently had 3 scores all over 50 yards. That's pretty awesome.
That's a big day. And how about this? The beauty of all the great things COVID gave us is an extra year for Traeshon Holden. So actually, he is a sophomore, because his true freshman year was 2020. He played but did not catch any balls. But that year just doesn't count. So really, 2021 was his freshman year eligibility-wise, and this is now his sophomore year eligibility-wise. But as we all know, in our crazy society these days, Holden will now be draft eligible after this season. Can you imagine that? That's the funniest part of these scrimmages and everything. If I get it, I never thought I would wake up on Sunday and be saying things like Traeshon Holden and draft eligible in the same paragraph. Like, like that would be a thing, but maybe that is a thing.
Well, it's also he's not only draft eligible, he can be at Alabama he could either go in the draft this year or be at Alabama for 3 more years. I mean, that's a pretty wide range.
That's exactly right. He's in he's in year 3 draft eligible, but thanks to COVID, it's year 2. So here's I think in a nutshell, the receiving group until JoJo Earl gets back, Burton. We know Ja'Cory Brooks be a part of things. We know Traeshon Holden is now a part of things. We hear Kobe Prentice. That's 4. It's really tough to come up with a 5th name right now in terms of standouts. So I think it's going to be those 4 primarily. We know JoJo Earl will join that group when he's back around October 1st from the broken foot. And that'll be 5, which is a pretty good number. But Saban would like to get 1 more, maybe 2 more guys. I'll tell you a guy who's been really quiet this spring. I don't think Nick Saban has said his name unless prompted by the beat writers. But, our kid Tyler Harrell from Louisville, quiet. Now, is he quiet because he's not going to be good? Is he quiet because he's hurt? Possible. Black jersey. We've seen that in a practice video. That he's in a black jersey, so banged up for sure. But it maybe I don't think disappointing is the right term at all, because it's so it's so early. They haven't played a game yet. That's how early it is. But Tyler Harrell, obviously, we can say this: he didn't show up and make a splashy impact. So I think Tyler Harrell over the course of the season will become a thing. But right out of the gate, probably not.
Well, which is I really hate turning this into the Traeshon Holden only podcast, but it's another reason that it's great that we have a guy that can score from 50 yards out as a wide receiver. Now, maybe these passes were bubble screens that he took 50 yards. I don't know that he necessarily took the top off of defense, but that's what's been worrying a lot of Alabama fans is, hey, do we have anybody that we can just say, go deep and I'm going to throw it as far as I can, like with Jamison Williams?
Right. Harold's got to become that guy. I think JoJo can become that guy. Aaron Anderson, when he gets back from injury, he could become that guy. I'll tell you, I think Jermaine Burton people don't need to just label him. He's going to be, I'll tell you what, people compare him to Mechie, and I like the comparison, and I think that it's in the ballpark. But let's remember this. Before Mechie's last season, Mechie was a big play machine. Remember all his deep ball? He was a big play machine. Burton can be that guy too. As a matter of fact, Jermaine Burton is faster than John Mechie. He just tends to run routes and do his best work on all underneath stuff. That's what he's really good at. But Burton will make, I will guarantee if a healthy Jermaine Burton over 15 games is going to make several big play touchdowns from well out. He's not just a 3rd and 8 guy. So he'll make plays.
It is weird because when I think of John Mechie, obviously you're going the Auburn overtime winning score will come to mind, the crane kick will come to mind. But, then if you're saying, okay, think of 5 plays John Mechie made. The plays I'm going to go to are the 2 really long touchdowns he had against A&M in 2020 and the long touchdown he had against Georgia in 2020. And we didn't think of those anymore in 2021. He didn't seem to have, I can't remember one. I remember more like he did have a nice, it wasn't a long touchdown, but against Miami, he had a nice running catch, but it wasn't a take the top off the defense. It was, he caught it in the middle of the field and then high stepped his way into the end zone.
I think it was right about 40 yards.
Because you couldn't think of him going deep anymore, because when you thought of Alabama going deep, you only thought of Jamison Williams.
And I think that's what we're accidentally doing here. We're like, okay, Burton's the short guy, and then we got to find a long guy. I think Burton's going to sort of do all of it. I think we haven't seen a lot of it yet, but I think Ja'Cory Brooks will be pretty good at making the big play down the field. Not a burner not a guy who's going to outrun the defense, but his catch radius is so good. His hands are so good. And I'll tell you, a lot of times the big play down the field is made because of a contested catch in traffic. I think that's sort of Brooks' thing, and he can make big plays. And I'm high on Tyler Harrell as a guy that's going to develop into that. It's just a little bit more of a developmental thing than a guy like Jamison Williams, who just showed up making a 90-yard touchdown play against Miami. So it'll develop over time. And in the meantime, the defense is really good. In the meantime, the biggest playmaker on the offense that's not Bryce Young is Jahmyr Gibbs. And nothing we learned yesterday, changed that. I mean, this is really, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be the dependable playmaker on this offense week to week.
Apparently, and again, I don't think they've put out official stats. Have they? Did they put out official stats for this?
I never saw official stats. I just saw what Coach Saban mentioned, and I've seen what various people have put out that's sort of a guess, as to what went on. I think Coach Saban said Gibbs had 60 yards, and a lot of it was apparently on one particular run. But Gibbs is going to be the dependable playmaker. And by that, what I mean is you can write it down before the game starts that 3 or 4 times during the course of the game, Gibbs is going to make you go, wow, and make a big play. He's fantastic at making people miss. I saw a clip of him. I think Clint Lamb put it out on his Twitter account, a clip of him at Georgia Tech on a run that he made at some point at Tech. His short area quickness is David Palmer-like. I mean, he will make you miss. He's like he disappears from one spot and materializes somewhere else with his lateral quickness, and that's something he brings to the table every week.
It's funny you say that because Aaron Suttles, a friend of the program, he just wrote this whole article on why David Palmer was maybe the best high school player in Alabama history or something. I haven't read the article because, who's got $1 to subscribe to The Athletic? No, I'm teasing. It is only $1 to subscribe, and I'm going to do it because David Palmer is in my top 2 of all-time favorite Alabama players. And I was sort of stupid because Aaron put out a tweet like, hey, I did this, and I tweeted at him saying, hey, there's one clip in high school of David Palmer running full speed and then stopping on a dime and like stepping into the end zone. And he goes, yeah, that's in the article, by the way. And I was like, oh, I should probably read that. Because I remember watching that, not live, but watching it, the highlights. Yeah, and on Channel 6 out of Birmingham and going, oh my God, that was incredible. But
we didn't know each other. We didn't know each other then because that was so long ago. But I literally watched the same show. I mean, I'll remember watching, I think it's Rick Carley's. Yeah. Rick Carley was doing the highlights, and I remember the exact. That's how big it was. Probably one of the best plays I've ever seen. And man, I wanted Alabama to sign David Palmer so bad. Even to this day, as much as we're into it, and as much as we follow it, as much as it's my job now, I don't think in my life I've ever wanted Alabama to sign a player more than I wanted Alabama to sign David Palmer, and it worked out.
God, I wish David Palmer had been in like a Sark or Lane Kiffin system just one time. Jimmy, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, I want to bring out some more players from the scrimmage, a couple that are, boy, they came out of nowhere for me. And we'll talk about that as soon as we get back. Okay, we really didn't go anywhere.
Hey, 1 point now that you're back. 1 point. I get the look forward and what would David Palmer look like in a 2022 offense or Lane Kiffin building something around him. I always go backwards. I always want to say, what would David Palmer have looked like 15 years prior running the wishbone at quarterback? I mean, full-time quarterback, running the Tommy Frazier Nebraska offense, running the Alabama or Texas or Oklahoma wishbone like Jameel Holloway. I think he would have been, and hey, that shared your good buddy, the late great Bill Oliver. I remember Bill Oliver specifically stating, who coached David Palmer. He was the defensive coordinator while Palmer was on the team. Bill Oliver said David Palmer would have been the greatest wishbone quarterback of all time.
Yeah, he probably would have. Every time somebody brings up time travel now, I'm reminded of two of my favorite comedians. I won't go into the Louis C.K. one, even though it is kind of Louis C.K. essentially said, he said, wouldn't time travel be cool? He said, but he said it would be great because I'm a white male. I can go backwards in time to any point in history and be welcomed with open arms. He said, but if I go forward in history, I might be in a lot of trouble. He said, somebody's going to get me. He said, but and then Nate Bargatze, I think that's how you said it, Nate Bargatze. I don't know. Anyway, he's a really unassuming comedian, like from Tennessee, kind of country.
Must be. I don't know him.
Oh, dude, you got to look him up. He's funny. Anyway, he had a whole thing on time travel. He said, I never want to time travel. He said, if I went back in time to like 1920 and I saw a guy like on a telephone, I'd say, hey, you know what? In the future, they make telephones that you can actually just hold in your hand and walk around with. And the guy would go, oh my God, how did they do that? And I'd go, I don't know. I don't know how we do this. And he said, I can't explain it. In fact, and the guy goes, what do you do? He said, well, first you need a satellite. And the guy would go, what's a satellite? And he'd go, oh God, I made it worse. He said, I'm the only person who could go back in time and people would think I traveled forward from the past because I know so little. I just thought that was funny.
I have not. That's so me, by the way. How do you do that? I don't know how a 1958 television worked.
He said, I think it has something to do with metal and satellites. But anyway, okay.
I read the other day that our iPhones, the iPhones that we use every day, have more power in computer terms than the computers we used to land Apollo on the moon. And the thing that's so amazing to me about that is I can't land Apollo from my phone. I can barely get Luke on Restream Studio on my phone. I can't even get Luke. I can't even do this without people going, Jimmy doesn't know how to work his stuff.
Doesn't it seem like an irony of like if you made a deal with the devil or something, you're like, I want to go back in time, and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to make so much money. And then you kind of forget that you don't know how to do any of this stuff.
I don't know how anything works.
Okay. Speaking of, it's another mystery, how no video has leaked from somebody's iPhone from the scrimmage yesterday is also a minor miracle. Although Nick Saban would have that person drawn and quartered.
That's why. Yeah, that's why. I mean, people attending are not supposed to share information, share video, and that's why. You have to. It's a closed scrimmage for real. If Alabama wanted it well known, then it would be well known. But the way I look at it is, if Coach Saban doesn't want it known, then it just doesn't really need to be known. We'll just go by what Coach Saban said, and that's enough. That's what Coach wants.
One other name I want to throw out there, Jimmy, and then we'll wrap this podcast. And we'll keep talking about this scrimmage all week. Another thing I want us to start doing, we couldn't do it yesterday, but now that high school football has started,
I got a lot to say about what happened Friday night, all over the place.
And we're gonna do that. I actually got to call the Auburn Hoover game. Did the scoreboard show? There were some amazing plays. The Fairhope game ended on a pick six, like to win the game. That's crazy talk. Auburn High School, by the way, beat Hoover 17-14, and the most impressive player on the field. And I'm not saying this in a way that puts down anybody else. They have a guy named Towns Mago, MCGOUGH, who's the kicker. And that guy he's a problem. If you like kickers, he's a great kicker. I would offer him a scholarship now. He's really, really good. Now, I think he's only a junior. I can't remember. I've done a lot of high school stuff since then, so I can't remember. But he was really good. In warm-ups, he was nailing 55-yarders, and then he actually hit the game winner late. He also, his kickoffs, every one of them went in the end zone. Now, I know in high school you go up a little farther. I know all this stuff. But he also, the punter was having a bad day. Mago, we never really got clarification on his name, comes in, and they put him in, Jimmy. This is no kid. He was the backup punter too, right? And so Auburn is all the way on their goal line, and he has to go punt. They're snapping it from the 1-inch line. Now, the punt gets blocked because the line sort of failed him on that one. It wasn't his fault. But you would think, oh my God, this is going to really shake him up the rest of the game. No, he got better. I mean, he got a lot better. And he was put in the worst position you can put a backup punter in. And yes, it got blocked, and yes, all that happened, but it didn't shake him up, which I think having the cojones to overlook a mistake is a huge part of being a kicker to me. It's a huge part of sports in general, but especially a kicker, because if they ever get the yips like you do when you're putting, it's really hard to shake that. As Alabama fans, we know about this. But Jimmy, I want to bring up one more name. I went off on a tangent. Quindarius Robinson. You want to talk about guys that we have forgotten about, that most fans have written off? Apparently, Quindarius Robinson was a thing Saturday.
Yeah, true. But, with Dallas Turner, Will Anderson, Chris Braswell, I mean, there's no room at the end. To quote the Bible, there's just no room at the end. How are you going to get?
We're always quoting the Bible around here.
I do, and as usual, daily on the show here. But there's just no place to play a fourth outside linebacker, whether it's Q-Rob, whether it's Keanu Coate, who I happen to know the coaches are very high on him. Jeremiah Alexander, who was just a premier prospect. He's a true freshman, but got to be high on him. I'll tell you a guy we don't talk about that a lot of people just written off. And who knows, I hate to bring up the transfer portal because you don't know what's going to happen with the guy's career. But, hey, don't think for 1 second Demoy Kennedy's not an athlete. I mean, I hate that we had to move him to running back because of the emergencies last year. And that should just tell everybody what a great athlete he is, that you think, oh, well, we got to move somebody to running back. Well, you think receiver, you think defensive back. Who thinks linebacker? But Demoy Kennedy is that kind of athlete. And just like Q-Rob, all he probably needs is an opportunity, but you're just not going to get an opportunity when you have Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, and Chris Braswell. Will's the best outside linebacker in the country. Will and Dallas are the best outside linebacker duo in the country. Will, Dallas, and Braswell are the best trio in the country. So there just won't be snaps with the first team. But should there be some patience on those long-term backups, looks like there won't be, a tremendous drop-off in the future.
All right, buddy, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back. Who knows? We may do another one today. There's so much to say on this scrimmage, so much to say on Friday night. And, we'll be back shortly. There is no shortage of content from here until the end of time with us. I mean, maybe some other podcasts run out of stuff. We don't. We do Bible quotes. All right. All right, Jimmy, we will talk again soon. Until then, roll tide, buddy.
Roll tide.